How do you spell Gasthaus?
Look it up.
At last! Oh, no, it won't start. I knew it would happen. I knew it. There goes my whole vacation. My whole vacation. Wait a minute. I can rent a car. That's it. I can rent a car. There are lots of agencies throughout Europe that rent cars, many with names you're familiar with. However, AFRTS rents cars. They're right across the street from AFN, so I decided to try them first. I want the cheapest car available. But before we talk dollars and cents, what do you need to rent a car from AFRTS? Well, you must be an ID card holder. You've got to be 18 years old, and you must have a valid POV license or a stateside license and a copy of your leave form or TDY orders. In this case, a Ford Fiesta will cost $141 no matter where I drive for 1 week. Or the same car at AFRTS can be rented for $91.30 a week plus 11 cents a kilometer. And you have to use a little arithmetic to figure the best deal. For instance, drive that Fiesta from Würzburg to Munich and back again, and you put 558 clicks on the speedometer. Once you drive 451 clicks, you broke even. So that trip to Munich will cost you about $10 over what you could rent the same car for at a flat rate, unlimited kilometers. Okay, AFRTS requires the entire cost of the rental under the unlimited kilometer agreement. In this case, $141. They accept credit cards, cash, and personal checks. I checked some prices at other major German rental agencies and found that prices vary from 329 marks a week to 518 marks a week, so it pays to shop around. Some accept personal checks and some don't. Be prepared to pay as much as 700 marks for deposit. Now, I didn't want to tie all my cash up, so I used AFRTS. One word about gas. In order to get coupons, the information on this form has to be on your unit letterhead with your commander's signature, and you're all set. Michael, thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon. Well, looks like I'm all set for my vacation. All set, I say. I've got one real big problem, and that is, it's kind of embarrassing. I don't know where to go. Kind of looking for some advice.
Well, Charlie, you might want to consider an area of northern Bavaria, Franconia, or Franken, and specifically an area of Franken that's north of Nuremberg, focusing around the towns of Coburg and Bamberg. Now, Bamberg is kind of known as Germany's Rome. Bamberg, like the Italian capital, is built on 7 hills. This is the highest of those 7, and this is where the city got its start in 531.
Franconian knights built a fortress where the Altenburg now stands. The old castle that's here today, though, dates from only about 900 years ago. And to go along with a hearty view of the city and the surrounding countryside, the Altenburg of today offers a hearty spot for refreshing the weary traveler. Going back down into Bamberg proper now, and to yet another of the 7 hills.
One of the must-see stops on your tour of Bamberg has to be the Domburg, the cathedral of the city, first built in 1007, destroyed by fire a couple of hundred years later, and around 1200 rebuilt in its present form.
Inside, one of the symbols of the city, the Bamberg Knight, said to symbolize the ideal Christian soldier. Also in the cathedral, the tomb of the only pope buried in Germany, Clement II, who died in 1047. And at the other end of the cathedral, another tomb, that of Holy Roman Emperor Heinrich II and his wife. Heinrich founded the cathedral nearly 1,000 years ago. Just north of the cathedral, the Rose Garden of the new residence. And from there, the view of yet another one of Bamberg's 7 hills, and the former abbey that is now St. Michael's Church. The remaining monastery buildings there, now a home for the elderly.
Oh, it's lovely. Beautiful.
Well, when you get tired of sort of traipsing around the city and it's time for a break, you might want to stop in to a little Gasthaus in one of the side streets near the cathedral. This particular Gasthaus is owned by the brewery Schlinkerle. They are the ones that make Bamberg's famous smoked beer. This is a Bamberg famous smoked beer. Basically, in the first stage of brewing, after they cook the malt for the first time, they then dry it out and sort of charcoal broil it, smoke it. And that gives the beer its distinctive flavor of charcoal broiled beer. Close. It's different, but it's good.
Another natural resource for Bamberg is the Regnant River. It runs through the heart of the city, part of which is built on an island between 2 branches of the river. And on the eastern section of the Regnitz, one of Bamberg's most famous sites, City Hall. The Rathaus here is built on an artificial island in the middle of the water. And from the downriver bridge, you can see Little Venice, which pretty much brings our Bamberg visit to an end. Of course, there's lots more to see and to do here, and the best place for information, the City Tourist Office. We'll get that address to you coming up at the end of the program, all right? Now, to get to Bamberg, take the Bamberg exit from the Würzburg-Nuremberg Autobahn. The exit is about 50 kilometers northwest of Nuremberg, and then you need about another 30 kilometers or so north of the Autobahn to get to Bamberg. That's on Bundesstraße 505. Now, if you continue north of Bamberg, changing from Bundesstraße 505 and getting on to Bundesstraße number 4, you come to Coburg. It's about 90 kilometers north of Bamberg. And then, just 8 kilometers out of Coburg, in the direction of Neustadt, you come to the town of Rödental, the home of the Hummel. The Willy Goebbels factory is the place, and there are about 1 million signs directing you to parking spots for what I guess could be called the Hummel Factory Outlet Store. Show and sales rooms are open Monday through Thursday from 8 until 12 and from 1 until 4. Fridays open from 8 to 12 only, and they're closed on Saturday and Sunday. Language? Certainly no problem here. For instance, this summer, behind the counter, you'll find Ashley Aberlin, who hails from Virginia.
It's probably about 75% American visitors we have, and over 200, between 100 and 200 visitors a day, about 1,000 a week. The main advantage is to come in here. You can actually see where they're made, and we have a film that gives a history about the factory and porcelain collectors. And you can see in a demonstration room 2 artists at work, a painter and someone who garnishes the figures. And with all that extra perspective into the making of the Hummel figures and the other figures in the factory, it gives one a better idea of why they're expensive and the great care taken into making them.
And you don't have to buy anything when you come. To look at the displays, the film, which is only in German, but it is worth seeing, and to watch the craftsmen do their work, putting them together, finishing up the pieces. It's all for free. Of course, if you want to take a Hummel home, that will cost. But you could get a deal here. Discontinued models and production overruns are discounted, and all of the figures are first quality. No seconds are sold. course, not all the figures made by Goebel are Hummels, only those with the Hummel signature on the bottom of the figure. The selection for sale may not be as great here at the factory as at a very big dealer or a very big retail store, but the entire display, including the items that are not for sale, is the most complete if you just want to look.
Well, then I guess after a while you probably get a little tired of walking around the town, seeing the sights of the city, and going and doing the Hummel shopping, so you might also want to think about perhaps just a walk in the woods. In this area of North Franconia, it's not a bad idea. Lots of paths, well marked, well laid out. You can get maps and kind of commune with nature, sort of get away from the hustle and bustle of big city life. That's a nice idea, Charlie. Maybe you ought to try it. For Passport, I'm Lee Hilliard.
Bamberg seems pretty nice, and Hummels make great gifts. But I still want to leave my options open. Wonder what else there is to do.
Okay, Charlie, one of your options is to go to Copenhagen. If you've got 325 marks or so and the better part of a weekend, take a train. People are blended together with 800 years of history, the end result is going to be colorful. And that's just what the capital of Denmark is. Most visitors know of the city's most famous attraction, the Little Mermaid. This is a city of water, and you can learn that firsthand by visiting its many canals. You'll never be able to see them all, though. That could take years. Shopping, you say? Copenhagen is second to none in that department. The main shopping area is found along a street called Sturgen. It's where you'll find goods from all around the world, but being on the main street at their most expensive prices. Fear not, though. Just minutes away from the center of town are enough narrow streets with plenty of tiny shops to keep you busy all day long, all the while saving you some of your hard-earned money. Foods are wide-ranging, pleasing to the eye and the stomach. They also come in less spectacular but equally satisfying forms. You probably want to do your eating after you visited Tivoli Gardens, though. Sometimes this type of fun is best had on an empty stomach. Perhaps the nicest thing of all about Copenhagen is its people. They enjoy life, and they want you to enjoy it with them. There are many more things to do in Denmark in addition to Copenhagen. You'll be surprised by its beautiful stretches of white sandy shores and clean, though a bit chilly waters. This land of 500 islands is full of wonder, and who knows, after one trip to Denmark, you may never want to go home. For more information about Denmark, write KVG More, Danish Tourist Board, NATO Liaison Officer, Postbox 202355, 2000 Hamburg 20. And don't forget to ask about the NATO discount card. It can save you money while you're in Denmark. KVG More has all the details. For Passport, I'm Air Force Sergeant David Crispin.
Copenhagen. That would be a lot of fun, but I'd like to try something a little closer and something maybe something literary.
I heard what you said, Charlie. You said you wanted something literary, and we've got just the place. A place that's both literary and beautiful. It's literary because it was one of Mark Twain's favorite cities in the whole world. And it's beautiful because it's Heidelberg.
Romantic, picturesque, charming, they all apply to Heidelberg. So does this word, touristic. Indeed, 3 million tourists visit here each year. Most must cross an ocean or two to get to the city, primarily the Atlantic, since Heidelberg's #1 tourist is the American.
If I had a choice, you know, I'd come back here every year.
Its reputation as a world attraction is no overnight success story. It's the result of more than 1,000 years of history. 100 years ago, wealthy Americans on a European package tour, yep, they had travel agents even way back then, would often trek through London, Paris, Rome, and Heidelberg. Such a tourist was that Missouri man of 1,000 tales, that American original, Mark Twain.
Heidelberg was known among travel agents as a stop that people made. Ulysses S. Grant, for example, was in Heidelberg on a similar kind of tour. Of course, the average person couldn't tour in those days.
Harry Davis is a longtime resident of Heidelberg and an expert on Mark Twain's time in the city. He's writing a book about it.
He came to Europe this time. He had been in Europe some 10, 11 years before. And the book that he wrote as a result of the first trip was Innocents Abroad, which made him famous. He began to grope around for something that would make him an easy buck, and he was bogged down in the writing he was doing, including Huckleberry Finn, which had begun. And he remembered Europe. There in Europe, books sort of wrote themselves. He had done this 10 years before, he'd go do it again.
So Mark Twain came to Europe for a second time with high hopes of smashing an enemy known as writer's block. A boat took him across the Atlantic and a train to Heidelberg. That was early summer, 1878. Wonder what train fare might have been way back then. Today it cost 36 marks, second-class round trip from Frankfurt, 44 marks from Stuttgart, and a whopping 128 marks from Munich. That's for your information, since it won't do Mark Twain much good. Something else for your information is information. You can get bushels of it at the Hauptbahnhof. The office is located in front of the building. To the side of it, you'll find one of Germany's answers to the question of how do we get around a city anyway? The Straßenbahn. To get to the city center, take car number 1. It costs the Mark 80. They leave every 20 minutes from 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. He was a Prussian statesman and the first chancellor of Germany. We mention Bismarck only because by streetcar, you arrive at his place. That's Bismarckplatz, the center of Heidelberg. Electric trains and streetcars. Mark Twain didn't get a chance to use them. They weren't around in his day. He didn't get much of a chance to use his language either. Since I arrived a month ago, he said in a letter to a friend, my English tongue has proved a useless piece of baggage to me, and so troublesome to carry around in a country where they haven't a checking system for baggage. Today in Heidelberg, he'd find his excess luggage quite usable. English is widely spoken here by Germans, Australians, Americans, Canadians, and others, including Heidelberg's second most common tourist, the Japanese.
Well, I have been here maybe 5-6 times. Last year I stayed here for 2 nights and 3 days.
Why do you keep coming back?
Well, this time I'm escorting a tour.
Since 32,000 Japanese visit Heidelberg each year, you could say they have a real yen for the city. Sorry about that. Samuel Langhorne Clemens, best known as Mark Twain, knew old Heidelberg. In the 1980s, that means shuffling down the longest stretch of uninterrupted pedestrian zone in all of Germany, a quarter-mile long. It's barely 10 years old, but it runs right through the middle of old Heidelberg, the one Mark Twain knew so well.
I never knew he came here.
As you scoot down Heidelberg's Foot Street, notice that signs are posted on each corner. Good reference points they are. Notice also the abundance of old churches, like the Holy Ghost. There's a lot of old Heidelberg left. Among the oldest of the old, the Hotel Ritter. Built 400 years ago, it's one of the city's few survivors of the War of Succession. Between 1689 and 1693, the French practically burned Heidelberg to the ground, but not the Ritter. By the way, are you the curious type? Mark Twain must have been. Maybe he would have wondered how much a room cost in such a sturdy old hotel.
From 52 marks to 110, including breakfast.
We started our little trip on Bismarckplatz, so we've been hoofing it eastward so far. Now we'll angle our way north by making a right. Now we have a better idea of what old Heidelberg must have looked like 100 years ago. Skinny, skinny, mighty thin streets are in abundance, just barely wide enough to accommodate a trim vehicle. We'll just keep moving north because we want to see what most inspired that man from Hannibal Mole.
A hat full of water and its banks would overflow. So said Mark Twain about the Neckar River.
The man knew what he was talking about, since the river has overflowed its banks by more than 30 feet, or height almost to the top of old Carl Theodor Bridge. For Mark Twain, fascination came from watching the ships go by. He secretly hoped they would run into each other, or into a bridge. He thought it might be fun to watch, but he never got his wish. He did little river viewing from ground level, though. Nope, he had a much loftier perch to look down from. Heidelberg's prime attraction then and now.
He lived in a hotel near the castle called the Schloss Hotel, the Castle Hotel. You could walk from the garden of the hotel right into the garden of the grounds of the castle. And they spent a good deal of their time in the castle, the beautiful castle grounds there. As he put it, we spent our time smoking and knitting, meaning, of course, that he smoked and his wife did the knitting.
To get to the Schloss, start from corn-marked plots at the end of the pedestrian zone and follow signs. You can reach it by foot, by auto, or even by cog rail. That'll cost 5 marks round trip. Mark Twain should have had it so easy. Talk about big, the Heidelberg Castle is that, but you might have other ways to describe the place.
Everything's humongous here.
This old castle of red sandstone is a mix of all types of styles. No surprise, since styles changed quite a bit during the 400 years it took to build it. It's the most visited castle in Germany. One other thing about it.
Looks like it was destroyed.
The lad is quite right, of course. 4 times has this mighty dwelling been pummeled. Most recently in 1764. By a most formidable foe, lightning, which caused a great fire engulfing the entire castle. Heidelberg remembers that dashing smashing 3 times each summer by illuminating the castle with a spectacular display of fireworks. The next and final illumination happens on the 1st of September at 9 p.m. It's been happening since the days of Mark Twain. Not true of other forms of castle evening entertainment, like the annual Schlossspiel. From the 28th of July through the 31st of August, plays, concerts, and operas all happen. The most popular of these is easily The Student Prince, the story of a prince who falls in love with a peasant girl. It's a touching story. You can identify with it, says Helmut Hein, director of the festival.
It's romantic. It gives a number of people the feeling, well, perhaps I could be the prince, or I could be the Cathy that a prince is longing for. And it's
tickets and information available by calling 06221 21076. That's 06221 21076. They sell only a limited number of tickets in advance, so you can buy them at the gate. Prices vary from 8 to 30 marks, and if it rains, it's held indoors. And of course, it's in English. There will be 7 performances of The Student Prince on the 4th, 5th, 11th, 19th, 23rd, 26th, and 31st of August. They always begin at 8 p.m. How splendid it must be to see a play in such spectacular surroundings. The view is spectacular as well. Mark Twain knew all about that.
From way up here, he would sit for hours and hours and hours, watching the ships go by, daydreaming and trying to come up with some new ideas for his stagnated writing career.
There's something about a spectacular view which brings out the daydreamer in all of us, and the cameras.
I like the houses blended in. They blend in good.
What Mark Twain hoped for was inspiration, but he found none. As much as he enjoyed Heidelberg, he struggled with his writing the whole time he stayed. Daydreaming did allow his mind to wander, but not his pen.
He thought he could get the same old line going again that he had in Innocents Abroad. It didn't work out that way.
In the fall of 1878, he sailed back to America. And though 100 years have gone by, the Heidelberg of Mark Twain remains as charming as ever. We've seen just a fraction of what makes it that way, For example, did you know Germany's oldest university is in Heidelberg? Yep, founded 600 years ago. It's hard to believe only 100,000 people live here today, and today it offers plenty for us overseas Americans, just like it did 100 years ago, for a man from Hannibal Moe.
Mark Twain visited Europe a total of 3 times, and during those times he came to Heidelberg 9 times. But despite all that, there are no reminders that he ever visited the place, except one. A lot of the Americans who are stationed here, they live in Mark Twain Village.
Information on Heidelberg is available from the city's tourist office. Just write Tourist Association Heidelberg, Friedrich Ebert Anlage 21, 6900 Heidelberg. Denmark info, again from KVG Moore, Danish Tourist Board, NATO Liaison Officer, Postfach 202355. 2000 Hamburg 20. Ken can also fill you in on the discounts available with the NATO key card as well. And for info on Bamberg, the city tourist office address is Hauptbachstrasse 16, 8600 Bamberg. And information for just about any place and just about anything in Germany available from the German National Tourist Board, or DZT. Beethovenstrasse 69, 6000 Frankfurt am Main. And Charlie, don't forget Stars and Stripes, unit newspapers, ITT, the USO, and wherever you see that little I.
Decisions, decisions, decisions. I just can't decide. Got an idea. A Swimbot would be a nice place just to kind of go and think. That's what I'll do. I'll go to a Swimbot and just kind of think about it. In Germany, a Schwimmbad is the same as a swimming pool. You'll find many nice ones throughout Germany. All you do is find where the line is when you go in, and that's probably where you'll plunk down your marks for admission. If you flash your military ID, you may even pick up a hefty discount. This Schwimmbad charges 6 marks for 2 hours. With a military ID, though, it only costs 4 marks. Now that sign is very important to remember. It's Umkleiden. That's where you're going to change. Just enter a booth that has some sort of indicator as to whether it's in use. And give me about 2 seconds. Some Schwimmbads don't allow cutoffs, so play it safe and wear a swimsuit. Also, a hairnet may be required. If so, you can buy one there for a mark or so. You'll need some place to store your gear, so find a locker with a key in it and insert 1 2-mark piece. By the way, that money is returned to you when you return the key. So just secure the key to your wrist and find the closest shower. This particular Schwimmbad has a giant wave machine just like the ocean, but no salt. There's also an area for non-swimmers, or if you just want to practice. One rule of safety is to never swim alone. At a Schwimmbad, you really don't have much of a chance to swim alone, though, because it's easy to find friends. But wherever you swim, make sure it's in an authorized area. If you have any doubts, check with your unit. Just one more dip and I'll head out to Heidelberg. Hey, that'll make a nice day trip. Ooh, that's cold. And then to Bamberg and pick up a few Hummels for some friends, then straight to Copenhagen. Da 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 da. Vacation's all I ever wanted.
One more thing, Charlie, to keep in mind when you're on the road in Germany from now on. The German seatbelt law gets some 40-mark teeth on August 1st. Effective next Wednesday, the driver and front seat passenger in a car must wear seat belts. And if you've got belts in the rear seat, riders in back must buckle up too. An on-the-spot ticket can be given to each person not wearing a seat belt at 40 marks per. So buckle up and have a safe trip.